Karen Williams stood before the wide viewport in the command center, watching the crimson sky churn. Another dust storm was rolling in, sweeping across the barren plains like a living tide. She had watched storms like this for 3 long years, ever since the final rescue ship had abandoned them. New Haven Colony was dying, and everyone knew it. The air tasted wrong today. It always did when the machines started to fail. Karen could smell the tang of metal and oil that meant the air filters were breaking again. Jake Morrison had warned her this day would come. The chief engineer had been telling everyone for months that their time was running out. Jake entered the room, his face bearing the same exhaustion that hung over them all. His clothes were streaked with dirt, his hands black with grease. He carried a data pad flashing red numbers Karen didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. 6 months. That was all the time they had before the air systems failed completely. Jake explained how each unit was decaying faster than they could repair it. The parts they needed didn't exist on this world, and no supply ships had come in 3 years. Below, in the hydroponic bays, the crops were dying too. The great grow lights consumed too much power. They had to choose, light for food or power for air. Each day the choice grew harder. Each day more machines were shut down to save what little energy remained. Dr. Helen Carter spent her days in the lab searching for solutions that weren't there. She studied the rocks and dust of this world, hoping to find something, anything, that could help them breathe. Occasionally, she found traces of gas far beneath the surface, but the old drilling rigs had long since failed. The children were blissfully unaware. 8-year-old Lucy Peters ran laughing through the corridors, chasing her friends beneath the red warning lights that signaled danger. Her mother tried to keep her smiling, but Karen saw the fear behind every parent's eyes. Alex Thompson patrolled the halls with his security team, maintaining order among the 12,000 souls still calling New Haven home. Every day more complaints reached him. The food portions were smaller. The air was thinner. Illness spread faster. Some begged to repair the broken shuttles and flee this world, even if it meant dying in space. 2 ships sat in the hangar, ghosts of escape. One's power core was cracked and would detonate if ignited. The other lacked navigation components to survive the void. For 2 years, both had gathered dust, symbols of false hope. Each week, Karen stood before the colonists, facing a sea of anxious faces. She spoke of Dr. Carter's progress, of Jake's tireless work, of hope she no longer felt. The last distress call had gone unanswered for 3 months. No ships traveled this far anymore. The mines were empty, the metals long stripped away, leaving only holes and a colony full of people the galaxy had chosen to forget. At night, Karen Williams lay in her small quarters, listening to the sounds of the dying colony. The air pumps groaned with a grinding rattle that worsened each day. The power generators coughed and stuttered like weary lungs struggling for air. Sometimes the lights flickered and everyone froze, afraid they might not return. In the communications room, silence was the norm. Lisa Chang sat at her console, sending pleas into the void, messages no one would ever hear. The same desperate words went out daily, begging for aid, offering payments they didn't possess. The signals vanished into the dark between the stars, reaching worlds that no longer cared. Resignation had begun to spread. Some colonists no longer left their quarters. Others worked harder than ever, clinging to the illusion that one more repair could change their fate. The scientists, like Dr. Carter, labored endlessly on impossible answers, because surrender meant watching everyone die. Jake Morrison, once a respected engineer on Earth, now spent his days crawling through half-dead machines, trying to coax another day of life from them. His tools were worn down, his spare parts nearly gone, and his hope almost spent. Yet he kept working, because the alternative was unthinkable. The mines that had once made New Haven rich were now filled with toxic gases. When the air systems failed, those gases would flood upward, suffocating everything. 10 days. That was all they'd have after the machines stopped. It was not a merciful death, but it was the one waiting for them. That evening, Dr. Carter found Karen in the command center, staring through the glass at another fading red sunset. The scientist carried a folder thick with data, tests, readings, failures. She'd been awake for 18 hours, and every result told the same story. This world could not sustain human life without machines, and their machines were dying. Outside, the approaching storm churned like an angry sea. In a few hours, it would engulf the colony in red dust. They had grown stronger lately, as though the planet itself wished to bury them. Karen watched the storms advance and wondered if this one would destroy their final air filter. Tomorrow, she'd send another unanswered distress call. Tomorrow, Jake would fix another doomed machine. Tomorrow, Dr. Carter would run more futile tests. Tomorrow, the children would laugh in the halls while the adults hid their terror. But tonight, Karen Williams stood beneath the blood-red sky, thinking of the 12,000 souls who still believed in her promises, and she wondered how long she could keep lying about hope. The truth was simple and merciless. New Haven was dying, and no one could save it. Lisa Chang sipped cold coffee, eyes on her dark monitors, until everything changed. The long-range sensors, dead for 3 years, suddenly blazed with readings that made no sense. A trembling hand reached for controls as a massive silhouette appeared at the system's edge. A ship, larger than anything in their archives, emerged from hyperspace. Over 2 kilometers long, its hull shimmered between silver and deep ocean blue, alive with color. Lisa had worked with ships her whole life, but never one like this. She called Jake Morrison first. He studied the readouts and shook his head in disbelief. The power readings exceeded every scale. Measuring it was like gauging a star's heat with a kitchen sensor. The ship's movement defied propulsion physics. It bent space itself, gliding like a fish through water. Karen burst into the comms room at the sound of alarms. She found Jake and Lisa frozen before data that looked like sorcery. The vessel was approaching, accelerating at impossible speed, yet moving effortlessly. Dr. Carter arrived moments later, connecting instruments, running tests that shattered understanding. The hull's composition was unknown, its energy readings beyond human technology. Then, through the static, a transmission came. The voice was calm, ancient, and resonant, speaking in the forgotten words of old Earth. Lisa used the computer to translate. The message was clear. From humanity's earliest era of interstellar flight, back when people first dared to cross the stars. According to every historical record, the Phoenix had vanished over 4 centuries ago in a hyperspace accident. Its crew was presumed lost, its name a legend whispered by explorers. But the vessel now approaching their dying world was no ghost from the past. Its systems pulsed with energies so immense they made New Haven's generators seem like flickering candles. Every scan returned readings beyond comprehension. Technology not just advanced, but impossible. The Phoenix appeared to be powered by forces unknown to human science. It drifted through space as though alive, guided by invisible currents no engine could follow. As it drew nearer, their screens revealed breathtaking detail. The ship's hull was etched with glowing geometric veins, like shifting circuitry alive with thought. Lights rippled across its surface, waves of luminescence pulsing as if information was flowing beneath its metallic skin. It was mesmerizing, beautiful and terrifying all at once. The Phoenix entered orbit with perfect, silent grace. It used no visible engines, no maneuvering thrusters. One moment it was distant. The next, it simply was there, as if space itself had folded to make room for it. Colonists gathered at the observation decks in awed silence. Little Lucy Peters pressed her face to the glass, staring up at the shimmering titan suspended above their world. For the first time in months, the adults around her smiled instead of whispering fears. The ship looked like something out of a bedtime story, too wondrous to exist. But in the command center, Karen Williams and her senior officers were not smiling. They knew miracles always came with hidden costs. Ships that defied science did not appear in forgotten systems out of charity. There was a reason the Phoenix was here, and that reason might not be salvation. Jake Morrison ordered full-spectrum security scans. The results showed no detectable weaponry, but that meant nothing. A vessel of such sophistication could likely erase their colony without ever firing a visible shot. They were utterly defenseless if its intentions proved hostile. The Phoenix continued to orbit silently, a colossal shadow against the red sky. It made no requests, sent no further transmissions, only waited, patient and still, like a predator studying its prey. The initial joy of the colonists faded into unease. Why had it come? Why did it linger? Dr. Helen Carter tried probing the ship's interior, but her scanners failed to breach its hull. The readings it gave back were indecipherable. Life signs, yes, but layered and strange. Something both familiar and alien. Whatever inhabited that ship, it might not be entirely human anymore. Lisa Chang kept sending messages into the void, hoping for an answer. Phoenix, sending questions and status reports, pleading for a reply. Yet the ship's crew remained silent. They seemed to be waiting for what? Lisa couldn't tell. The quiet was worse than any open threat. As night fell across New Haven, the Phoenix became visible to the naked eye. It hung above the world like a second moon, its hull radiating a gentle blue luminescence. Children pressed their faces to windows, marveling at the celestial wonder. Adults gazed upward too, caught between awe and dread. Karen Williams stood in the command center, staring through the skylight at the ship that defied reason. Part of her wanted to believe that salvation had come at last, but the rest of her remembered too many stories about saviors who demanded terrible payment in return. She wondered what the Phoenix's crew would want from them and what her people might have to sacrifice. Then the shuttle arrived. It descended soundlessly through the thin red sky, its surface flowing like liquid metal. When it touched down in the colony's main docking bay, even the most hardened technicians stopped to stare. Karen waited at the airlock with her senior officers. Alex Thompson stood beside her, his security team ready, though their rifles now felt like toys before gods. When the airlock cycled open, no one breathed. A man stepped through. He appeared to be in his 30s, dark-haired, calm, his blue eyes carrying an impossible stillness. His clothing seemed plain, yet shimmered subtly, its color shifting with the light. But it was his eyes that made them all draw back. They held the depth of someone who had lived far longer than any human should. "My name is Ryan Brooks," he said in that same calm, ageless voice they had heard over the comms. "I am the commander of the Phoenix." 5 others followed him, 3 women and 2 men, each appearing youthful, flawless, and yet ancient in bearing. They moved with quiet grace, as if time itself flowed differently around them. One woman stepped forward. "Diana Walsh," she introduced herself. "Medical officer." Her silver hair glowed faintly under the station lights, and her scanning device thrummed with layered harmonics that seemed to resonate through the air and into their bones, revealing data beyond any known instrument. Next was Carl Jensen, the engineering specialist. His tools looked like crystal and light fused into one. When he touched their decaying machinery, holographic diagrams bloomed from nothing, showing the inner workings in impossible clarity. Jake Morrison could only stare. This was technology centuries beyond comprehension. The Phoenix crew moved with the practiced precision of healers tending a patient. They passed through the colony's failing infrastructure like surgeons diagnosing a dying body. Within hours, they identified faults that New Haven's engineers had battled for months, but Karen Williams demanded answers. She refused to accept salvation without knowing the cost. Commander Brooks listened quietly, his expression patient. Then in that same measured tone, he began a story that shattered everything she thought she knew about humanity's past. They were part of an ancient exploration initiative, sent beyond charted space over 4 centuries ago, tasked with uncovering what existed in the dark between galaxies. What they discovered there reshaped them in ways no mind on Earth could have foreseen. In the silent reaches between stars, they found relics of a civilization so old it had turned to dust before humanity had even stood upright. The technology they uncovered was not merely advanced, it transcended comprehension, working on laws far beyond human understanding. Among those ruins lingered machines that still lived after millions of years, whispering in alien logic. These constructs offered the crew a choice: return to Earth with what they'd found, or surrender their humanity and become something greater. They chose transformation. Dr. Helen Carter listened in disbelief as Commander Brooks explained. The Phoenix crew had fused alien nanotech into their own biology. Their lifespans now spanned millennia, their intellect expanded beyond human limits, and their minds could merge directly with devices governed by quantum mechanics. Yet with this new power came purpose. The machines had entrusted them with a mission to watch over humanity's rise among the stars, guiding and protecting their scattered colonies from the shadows. For 400 years, the Phoenix had crossed the voids between human worlds, preventing wars, curing plagues, and saving dying settlements, always unseen, always ensuring humanity believed in its own triumphs. They had become humanity's quiet guardians, an unseen safeguard against extinction. Still, Alex Thompson remained wary. Once a soldier, he understood that anyone wielding such power must have motives, but even his skepticism faltered before their results. In mere hours, the Phoenix team had solved crises that had plagued New Haven for months. Atmospheric processors could now be rebuilt, energy grids re-engineered to run indefinitely, food systems expanded tenfold. Dr. Diana Walsh's shimmering medical tools revealed the colonists' very DNA, repairing cellular decay as if rewriting life itself. To the colonists, she was both healer and miracle worker. Children followed her in awe, young Lucy Peters among them, filling the sterile medbay with innocent questions that Diana answered with the warmth of a teacher explaining the stars. Meanwhile, Carl Jensen shared technologies that could revolutionize human travel, quantum vacuum energy systems, space-folding drives that collapsed distances into days, and living materials that healed under strain. Yet Brooks's words carried a warning. The Phoenix did not gift such wonders freely. Every colony was tested, observed, judged for its potential. Only those deemed worthy received their aid. As the alien sun dipped below New Haven's horizon, the Phoenix crew assembled in the colony's hall, gathered like demigods among the people they were sworn to guide. The colonists gathered in the assembly hall, their faces a mixture of awe and unease. They had come to hear what their mysterious saviors required in return. Commander Brooks stood before them, his ageless eyes reflecting the fragile hopes of 12,000 souls. The moment had come to reveal the cost of salvation. For 3 days, the Phoenix crew labored, and in that short span, New Haven was reborn. The dying outpost became a place of miracles. The once failing atmospheric processors now drew pure air from gases that should have been toxic. For the first time in years, the colonists breathed deeply without tasting acid or dust. The air itself seemed alive. Karen Williams walked beside Carl Jensen through the humming corridors of the power station, trying to comprehend what he had done. The generators no longer consumed fuel. They pulsed with energy that came from nothing. Jensen spoke softly, explaining they were drawing power from the quantum foam that filled the void between atoms. His explanation sounded less like science and more like poetry. In the agricultural domes, the transformation bordered on divine. The crops grew in radiant green fields, their leaves glowing faintly under new light panels that seemed to channel sunlight from distant stars. The gardens of New Haven had become paradise. Yet as Karen gazed at the thriving world around her, a cold realization formed. These were no longer human machines. The Phoenix crew hadn't repaired the colony, they had remade it. The systems that now sustained life were alien, incomprehensible, impossible to maintain without their creators. In the med bay, Dr. Diana Walsh worked tirelessly, her instruments scanning not just flesh but something deeper. She spoke in hushed tones with Dr. Helen Carter about genetic modification, enhancements designed to help humanity survive the frontier. Some would gain lungs capable of breathing alien air, others immune systems resilient to any disease. A rare few would receive mental augmentations, enabling them to comprehend and wield technologies that defied physics. But Brooks made one truth clear: these gifts were selective. Every colonist was being evaluated: intelligence, courage, wisdom, the ability to bear responsibility without corruption. Only those who embodied these traits would ascend. Jake Morrison was chosen for his brilliance in engineering. Brooks offered him an enhancement that would let him feel the workings of machines, understanding quantum systems by instinct, creating designs that merged thought and matter. Dr. Carter, with her boundless curiosity, was another candidate. The Phoenix crew intended to expand her mind until she could grasp sciences that would seem divine to others, a bridge between human and alien thought. Alex Thompson's potential lay elsewhere. His discipline, his soldier's resolve, and his instinct to protect made him ideal for physical enhancement, becoming a guardian who could face threats no normal human could withstand. Yet most of New Haven's people would remain unchanged. They would live as caretakers of miracles they could never truly understand, maintaining the colony for generations yet to come. And then there were the children. Too young for most enhancements, but a few possessed minds flexible enough to endure the metamorphosis. Among them was little Lucy Peters. Diana Walsh spoke softly to Dr. Carter, describing the procedure in words both wondrous and terrible. Alien nanotechnology would rewrite human DNA cell by cell. For days, the subjects would lie unconscious as their bodies and minds evolved into something new. Those who endured the change would awaken nearly immortal, able to think on scales measured in centuries, to converse with machines beyond imagination, and to guide humanity's future among the stars. The subtle hum of energy flowing through the world around her. Every breath carried layers of meaning, every vibration a whisper of the universe itself. Karen Williams was still human in form, but something vast and unknowable now lived within her. As she stepped from the pod, the others followed. Dr. Helen Carter's eyes glowed faintly, reflecting shifting patterns of light that danced like data streams. She looked at the instruments around her and instantly understood them, as if she had designed the universe that made them work. Jake Morrison flexed his hands, feeling the pulse of machinery throughout the colony. His mind could now interface with systems directly, commanding them with thought alone. Alex Thompson stood silent and steady, his posture radiating quiet strength. His body had become a living weapon, capable of enduring the vacuum of space, moving with speed and precision beyond human limits. And then came Lucy Peters. The little girl stepped out of her pod, her eyes bright with wonder, her smile unafraid. The air shimmered faintly around her as if reality itself bent to her imagination. She looked at Diana Walsh and whispered, "It doesn't hurt anymore." No one asked what she meant. Everyone could see she was no longer just a child. She was something humanity had never seen before. Commander Brooks stood before them, pride and sorrow warring in his expression. "You have become the bridge," he said softly. "The link between what humanity is and what it must become. You will guide the others, teach them, protect them, but never forget who you were. That is the burden of immortality." The crowd was silent. Some knelt, others wept. For the first time, they realized what the Phoenix crew truly were, not gods, not conquerors, but humans who had walked too far into the light to ever return. As the Phoenix prepared to leave, Karen stood on the observation deck, feeling the ship's quantum field merge with her awareness. "Will we see you again?" she asked Brooks. He smiled faintly. "When humanity needs us, or when it's ready to walk beside us." The Phoenix rose without engines, without sound, its hull glowing like a living star. The people of New Haven watched in silence as their saviors ascended into the dark sky, leaving behind a world reborn and a handful of beings who would one day carry the fire of humanity across the galaxy. Karen turned to her people, her voice steady, resonant. "We are no longer waiting to be saved," she said. "From this day forward, we are the guardians. The flow of energy through space itself, sensing life and matter as one continuous rhythm." Dr. Carter emerged next, her mind resonating with newly awakened understanding. Equations she once struggled with now unfolded in her thoughts like living patterns. She could see the shape of physics beyond human limits, bridging the gap between mortal science and transcendent logic. She was no longer just a scientist. She was a translator between humanity and the cosmos. Jake Morrison touched a nearby console and the machine responded, its lights pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. He could feel the flow of data as if it were a living current, understand the symphony of quantum fields that powered every device. To him, technology was no longer a tool. It was an extension of his mind. Alex Thompson stood apart, silent and composed. His senses stretched beyond the room, mapping movement, sound, and threat before they could even occur. His reflexes were impossibly fast, his strength quietly immense. But what truly set him apart was awareness, the instinct to protect, honed to perfection. He was now the shield that would guard the human frontier, and then came Lucy Peters. She looked the same small child who had once pressed her face to the glass, but her gaze now shimmered with ancient understanding. She saw connections in the world invisible to others, the threads of cause and effect stretching across time itself. Yet beneath her expanded consciousness, her innocence endured. She smiled, and the air itself seemed to brighten. The transformation was complete. But as Commander Brooks reminded them, their true work had only begun. The newly enhanced, the new Guardians, would study under the Phoenix crew for years, learning the vast responsibilities that came with their power. When they were ready, they would travel to other colonies, offering protection, wisdom, and guidance to humanity's scattered children. Brooks revealed that they were not alone. Other Guardians existed across the galaxy, linked through a quantum entanglement network that allowed instant communication, no matter the distance. Humanity, for the first time in centuries, was united by something greater than fear or survival. It was bound by purpose. The Phoenix left behind automated foundries capable of producing its miraculous technologies. New Haven became a beacon, a hub where struggling colonies could find refuge and renewal. Ships began arriving daily, refugees, traders, settlers. The once empty docks thrummed with life. The air was pure, the crops abundant, and laughter once again echoed through its halls. The unenhanced colonists found their own place in this new world. They became teachers, caretakers, historians, keepers of memory in a time of miracles. They may not have understood the alien machines they tended, but they understood why they mattered. When it came time for the Phoenix to leave, Karen Williams stood beside Commander Brooks on the observation deck. Below them, gardens bloomed under alien light while children played without fear. Brooks spoke quietly. "Technology alone cannot save us. It must be guided by those who remember what it means to be human." Karen nodded. "We'll remember." The Phoenix departed without engines or fire, fading into the stars like a dream returning to sleep. But it left behind something that would never fade: hope. Years later, Lucy Peters watched from that same observation deck as refugee ships continued to arrive. Her body had not aged, but her soul carried the gentle patience of centuries. She watched humanity rebuild itself, grow stronger, wiser, and as she gazed into the stars, she smiled with both the joy of a child and the understanding of eternity. Humanity had found its guardians among the stars,